Hello, I'm Kate A. Hardy and welcome to Tales from the Vestry, readings from my novels and short stories. This tale was written after a memory of hill walking in Helvellyn and thoughts of possible future worlds. The ink drawings are by myself and the soundtrack by Mark Lockett. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, perhaps you could give us a like. Thank you. The Katbells Fishing Community. The Katbells Fishing Community. Alty sits down next to me with a thump. The tails of his soaking long coat slap me streaky across the face. Ow! Get grip! Sorry, got anything to eat? Mutton pieces, here. Unwrapping the weavy cloth, I tear him a piece of greyish flesh. He crouches, worn knees jutting forwards, holds the meat squirrel-like. You going out later in big boats, Yeg? He asks, dark eyes half hidden under the mat of tangles. I did my share in the night. A bulging fish bag of 3 stallion pikes. It was enough to scare a wildy cat out there. Just me, a butter lamp and that moon's sullen face. Aye, me and the missus sat out on High Tuft last night. Light points were sparking goodly. Alty prizes off a last nub of flesh and hurls the bone behind him. We sit, eyes ranging over the pewter seas, flick-flacked in circular motion. Fish lively like, he says. I point to a cloud crouching on the horizon. Storm's coming. Goat voices cover the trill of larks. I twist and see Sar, all blonde and flappy in a lengthy coat. She puts 2 fingers in her mouth and whistles higher than a flute bird. A goat, about to explore water death, turns to stare at her. Mad eyes saucer round. She gestures towards the animal. Thwait! Come, you pisser! The goat returns and she joins us, the seas now obscured by goat cluster and the fresh morn air pungent of milky, hairy bodies. How many have thou got now, sir? asks Alty, pulling the pendulous teats of a rounded woman goat. 20, soon to be 21. She points a gnarly stick at the beast's stomach. And don't be doing of that, she'll hoof tha. Can I take some milk for Bateau trade? She smiles. Surely, thou still got gorse flour? Alty stands, unbuttons his coat and delves deep into a pocket. Pulling out a wrinkled paper packet, he inspects the contents. Gorse and Breesley leaf. Sar nudges a dull metal pot from a many strung about a brown pelted goat. She crouches, pushing golden hair from her eyes, and deftly pulls on teats. Strings of milk zing into the pot. Zzz, zzz, zzz. She stands and passes the pot to Alty. He hands her the packet. Trade is done, palms to each other's cheek. I'll be at home if these want to partake a brew, he says as he drops his hand and turns to the pathway. I nod. Thanks, good return, Alty. He climbs the sod path, waxy coat creaking, steely boots flicking stones. Can I talk with tha? Sar asks as she seats herself. Her presence close to me causes warmth to my face. Beneath the goat odour she emanates scent and sounds of summer hillsides, cowslip and lark song. Speak thou not? She nudges me and laughs. The colour flares higher in my face. Yes, speak, talk, Sar. She pushes a curl of hair from her face and frowns. I was in argument last eve with Paulie. Oh? He says I think too much for a woman type. What is it that you think of? I agree with those that say we live on a sphere shape, that the water bends. Sitting up, I look out across the waters and peruse a thought that must occur in my mind 100 times when I ride in the great boat. Sometimes when we are on the sea and everything is as clear as dawn ice, I catch a feeling that there is indeed a bend in the water. She is silent, twisting a grass stem in her fingers. She looks up at me. Thy father, he was said to hold visions. Did he know? An image of my wizened parent lying on his bed, muttering numbers, appears in my mind. He had ideas, told me of books that G-Pa had, and machines that gave answers. Books like the sacred book. Many. There were buildings made only for holding books. Sa turns and studies the hills and grey stone crofts that sit in the grass knolls, smoke twisting from their chimneys. Buildings such as those? No, the height of 6 crofts atop of each other, maybe more. Her eyes widen, the brown circles as warm as toast bread. How would folk be at the top of such a height? Staircases. Has there never seen one in the knowledge house? She frowns. You know women cannot be in there. I delve into a pocket, haul forth a jangle of keys and pick out the largest. I could show you a staircase, Sa. She is silent, looking out across the water. I wonder if she thinks again of the curve, or perhaps that rogue she is attached to. I'd like that, she says, but thou will likely have trouble if they see I there. They won't, I bluster, imagining Sa in that clean-boarded space, alone with me, goats safely outside. Standing, she calls to the animals. Gra, gra! They turn as one and move towards her, eyes in permanent question, jaws rhythmic, side-to-side chewage. The knowledge house stands grey and solid as the mountain that grips it, rock on rock. I stride towards it, key now warm in my hand. Sa scatters something into the grass by the wall. The goats turn their fascination from her to the ground. Will they not wander, I say? She shakes her head. Not for a time. Stepping up to the weather-blasted door, I scan behind myself. Wall, goats, knolls, water, nobody. The door is stubborn, the wood fattened by rain. I push it hard and it creaks open. We step into the cavernous, beeswax-smelling room. Is it thou that keeps this place in order thus? Sa says as she turns, looking from wall to wall. Aye, me. I lock the door. She crosses the room and runs a hand over one of the 4 sitting things. I flush at the thought of the prime men's words if they could see her. Peculiar, she says, to sit upon? I nod. She takes off her lengthy coat and sits down on the blue sitting thing, fingers exploring the texture of the fabric. Casting aside an image of myself clasped behind her, our breaths loud in the space, I sit too. Has Paulie made no furniture at your croft? Nothing of softness like this flower-covered sit-place. Wood and goatskin made by myself. He prefers to drink plum schnapps and forget. I pick up one of the padded squares, stripy and bright as morning time. Sa points to a tab of fabric sewn into the shape. That can read, can thou not? A small amount. Scanning the letters, I read them out slowly. John Lewis. The name of a man, she says. He must have made these. As I study her face, all else falls aside. It is a long time I've felt warmth for Sa. I knew it to be wrong that she took Paulie for her man. Putting out a hand, I touch her face and trace the scattered freckles with trembling fingers. My heart bounds as she leans towards me, eyes half closed, warmth seeping. Strangest thing to kiss, a fragment of time where all else ceases to be. I open my eyes, Her smile dances. Show me upstairs before the goats take their liberty. Following her across the room, I watch as she removes boots and pads sock-feeted up the stairs. So strange to be elevated thus, she calls as I take off my own boots. The top room is empty, apart from a row of Breesley wood chairs and the sacred cabinet. Sa taps its glass front. It's fine, not as the Croft window, all tea colour and bubbles. I stare at the objects. My desire to pick them up and show her is overwhelming. Would thou like to see inside? Her eyes widen as she looks up at me. It's forbidden, surely. My smile is confident as I select the smallest key. With a sharp click, the lock is undone. I lift the lid and carefully take out the first object. Podley says it would have held a ritualistic fluid. I placed the tube of metal into her hands. She traces the crossing stripes of red and green, then cautiously turns the pale top. A cup? For dousing the fluid. Sa removes the inner top and sniffs inside the tube. Odour of elderly goat milk, she pronounces. I take it, carefully replace the stopper and cup, and then return the object to its nook in the red cloth. And this one? Sa queries, pointing towards the book. Writings of instruction.
The prime men think
it refers to a ship of the sky. When the vessel became repaired and then reparted towards one of the points of light, it must have been forgotten. Read the inscription, she says. Cradling the book, I speak the words slowly. Haynes Ford Focus. Sa peers at the drawing. Would there not be wings like a bird? A reply on my lips, I turn, hearing a creak on the lower floor. It's the wind, she assures me. Replacing the book, I pick up the remaining item and pass it to her. Soft, she says, but slippy, not like wool. I grasp the small metal piece and draw it back. Click, click, click. The material expands. Sa pulls it out further, her brow furrowed in question. Clothing, to be placed over the ritual maker, I say knowledgeably. After inspecting the cloth minutely, Sa folds the garment delicately back into the pouch and returns it to the cabinet. Play something, she says suddenly, like you do at round moon times. Smiling, I delve into my sack bag and bring forth the brass pipey. As I close my fingers to the holes, I wonder what the sounds will be in this resonant space. The jig is bright, never wavering, not like outside where the wind carries the notes. She twirls in the room, hair flowing and skirts lifting to reveal muscular cream thighs. I could sit forever in this space, playing, nothing more required than watching this woman dance. My mind play ceases as she stops abruptly, attention caught by something outside the window. Peering out, she beckons me over. The great boat is in. Paulie will be wanting me. The elation in her face has vanished, rosy mouth now a surly line. As I look out across the waters, insanity comes upon me. Sa, did thou ever wish to see what lies beyond Katbells? Always, she whispers. Would thou come with me if I were to leave? Within a moment. She turns to me and I see all my wondering reflected in her face. The goats, I say. Clara, second goatess, she would mind them. Paulie, I would fade in his mind, quick as pain from nettle rash. Without further word, I draw her from the window, check the cabinet's lock, and we descend the stairs into a darkened day. The goats' ragged bleats crescendo as they observe Sa's approach. She turns and calls to me. I meant it, Sieg! I stand for a while and listen to the wind singing through the fish-drying spikes. Smatterings of rain drum on my felty hat. Drops form and hang as momentary jewels, reflecting green-brown of hill and slate of sky. A calm day I've chosen for this madness. The red ball of the sun sits on the sea, staining the waters pink as diluting fish blood. I stand, nerves buzzing and questions crowding my mind. If she does not come in the next few moments, I will have to push the boat from this gravel shore, jump in and paddle away with only myself for company. The great boat, tied next to my smaller vessel, rocks gently, its side freckled with snails and weed spots. It would have been my turn to haul it from the sea and meticulously clean the wood. Somebody else will have to take my place. Alty? Paulie? Guilt pricks within me. Looking at the stock of supplies in my boat, I sigh, picturing myself humping the boxes back to the sombre interior of my croft. As my eyes trace the line between sea and sky, a whistle interrupts my thoughts. Turning, I see Sa, enveloped in a black coat, sack bag strung about her shoulders. I scrunch over stones, tripping in my excitement. That came! Said I would, Sieg. Did you tell Paulie? I ask, pushing these nibbling thoughts away again. She shakes her head and smiles wryly. I told Clara, though. She may be happy to take my place, and not just goat guardage. The sun has now risen, lightening the sky to a robin's egg blue. We must go, I say. Sa hitches up her coattails and climbs into the boat. She runs a hand over the curved plank sides. 'Tis well constructed. I point to the small stairway leading below deck. Take your belongings into the house place. I'll paddle out and see what winds wait beyond the cove. As the boat reaches the mossy headland, I turn to look back at Katbells, its cluster of crofts grey and mottled as lichen on a tree. Shrugging away the feelings that crowd, I dip and pull the long paddle side to side and watch my reflection dance. The community appears as small as a thumbnail when I rest again and stare back, the boat's trace disappearing into placid water. Pulling the paddle back to the boat, I still my arms and listen as the creaking of my leather coat ceases. Nothing stirs these waters today. Just the splash of a wheelie bird plunging for fish. I place the paddle on its rack and look down into the hatch. Sa lays on the bed, bags by her side. I walk down the steps, discard my coat and lie down next to her. She sighs and turns onto her side. I'm still for a long time, listening to the click-click of wavelets and her gentle breathing. I put out a hand to pull back the curtain and feel smooth wood. Not rock, boat, not croft. How long have I slept? And did I imagine the presence of Sa? A streak of light enters the house place and she's looking down at me from the hatch. Sieg, come, see the colour arch. Shivering now, I struggle into my coat and join her on deck. Mean rags of rain clouds sink low in the sky, the colour arch stretching across lands new to us. How long did we sleep? I murmur. She shakes her head slowly. I don't know. And why did we not hear the storm there surely was? I say nothing, just glance back at the mossy peaks behind us. More mountains rise up to the sun side of the boat, clutches of dwellings scattered. Should we hasten there, or journey away across the sea to find the real curve, or perhaps an edge? She takes a cloth bag from her coat, draws a string back and tips a clutch of flints into her hand. Thou wonders which is the good way to go, she says. I will read the stones. I nod, stand up and add to the nest of twigs sitting on the fire tray. As a spark grows to a small blaze, I place the blackened kettle on the stand and wait for her words. Crowds of striped fish flip around the boat, bellies shimmering. I will spike some for later eating. Sar calls me over. It is clear we should steer away from these hills, bear towards the Neverline. That worry thou? We have water, victuals, a bed, and no longer the prime men system. Nothing worries me. She jerks her head towards the end of the boat. The kettle seethes so. Make some sage tea for courage. I smile and take up the brown pot, rustling dry leaves to its interior. When the herb has brewed, we sit with tin cups, staring out across the water, silent as two cats. The sun has risen twice and my arms ache with paddleness by the time mountains have become but the backs of moles. All around, the water is agitated this day. A warm wind blows from the Neverline at our front, but the Neverline is all around now, broken only by a single black shape. Sar takes the paddle and I put up the windcloth. The breeze is sure of itself, blows us angular-like towards the shape. Replacing the paddle, she sways over. What is that, Sieg? I pin the windcloth back, spray stinging, waters snapping. My mind feels full of unfamiliar words, words that my father uttered and that I have forgotten. Tower. He told me of a tower once. Sar's forehead wrinkles in question. A building or a vessel? A construction? The boat is now close enough to see the fabric of the shape. Metal, gapped, stages on stages, topped by a single spike taller than a Breesley tree. Curiosity has snuffed out fear, and Sar's face is bright with excitement. I drop the windcloth and dip the paddle again, straining against the current's will. Shall I throw the hook rope? Calls Sar as we near one of the metal corners. Aye, into the first layer there. She hurls it with surprising strength, and the sound of metal on metal rings into the wind. Is thou afraid? She asks. I think of what fear might have meant, a funnel storm or winter food stocks raided by king rats. I don't know, I say truthfully. She hitches up her layers and climbs out onto the platform. Following, I stop to examine the flaking metal of red-brown. Her voice breaks in the wind. Sieg, look! I glance up to see her crouched at one of the corners, peering into a large yellow box. The sensation of crossing a web of metal rather than wood chills me. The waves suck and sprawl, and I waver, arms outstretched, bit by bit towards her. The box is made of a thick, smooth substance, the inside crammed with clothes, tools and dried foods. Sar is examining a scroll. She hands it to me. I recall similar papers my father owned before the prime men burnt his belongings. This one is unfinished, a large part to be completed. Here, she says, pointing to a drawing of a structure, possibly where we now stand. What is the word? Blackpool. I trace a finger over the sketchy lumps picked out against pencilled blue. Penny Ghent, Whernside, Helvellern. Katbells. She peers closer at the writing and then looks at me. Katbells? 'Tis perhaps Katbells. He or she must have been there, I remark. Why? To make this plan of the waters, it would seem. And these words, she says, above that thin box shape. She stands abruptly, pulling me up. Sieg! I turn to see a man standing on a raft. He balances deftly, as if used to the waves' swell against his square of wood. Dressed in something as yellow as the box, he clenches a stick of metal, arms bowed, tense, pointing at my head. Get thee away from my goods! Sar steps towards him. We mean no harm, friend. What's in the boat? Supplies, I say. What would they be needing? Water. I raise my hands away from my coat and pace towards our boat, looking back fearfully. He stays, stick raised, until I return, bearing a bladder of water. He seizes the thing, drinking urgently. What's yous doing on open waters? Came from where? He asks, wiping his mouth and handing the half-empty bag back to me. Katbells, and keep the container in exchange for knowledge. The man nooses the raft and steps over to us, his eyes running over Sar's body. I think about the metal stick. He has power more than us. I gesture to the scroll. Did you make this? He snaps it from my fingers. Aye, I did that. Could you tell us about the Beetham port and what lies beyond? The dark eyes gleam sudden. He pushes back a mat of strawy hair and bends his head to the paper. Aye, Beetham, a place of trade before the long waters. The long waters, long of time and boat travel. What is beyond? Asks Sar. He squints into the sun's rage. That is a fine question. At Beetham these might find others who know. I gesture to the nether line, where rays of light gild the water. Should I point the boat that way? He nods and looks over at our vessel. About a day's travel. He pauses and glances at the stick he holds. Got weaponry? My blank eyes answer. His grizzled features lighten into a smile as he raises the stick upwards, screws an eye against it and thrusts his body in a curve. A noise louder than cloud crack stings my ears. Through the smoke, a black shape plummets. He drops the stick, seizes a net and scoops the object from the water. Take it, he says, swinging the net towards Sar. She frowns and plunges her hands, bringing forth a saturated bird form. We stand staring at the cormorant while the stranger laughs at our wonder. How? I start. No guns at Katbells. I shake my head, although the words sit stubbornly in my memories. I might trade you this, I have another, he says. It has value, this gun? More than water and dry goods. So? His eyes narrow slightly as he moves towards Sar and stretches out a hand, running it over her shoulder. Heat swells in my stomach and I step between them, thrusting his arm away. Not for trade. Sar turns once to look at the stranger. She drops the bird, then sways back over the metal to our boat. I follow, step in, legs waggling, all fearness. Sar scrabbles the knot loose and I take up the paddle. The stranger laughs. He bends, collects up the limp creature and tosses it. Ha! Eat it well. The meat be leather-like, but it's good. Catching the bird, I hand it to Sar and wave back. Feelings tumbled. She looks at me with no expression. I would have done what he asked, Sieg, the weapon. Blackness seethes in my head. Dropping the paddle, I grasp her to me. We stand for a while as the boat drifts away from Blackpool, the stranger now just a part of the metal structure against a silver sky. Sparks and soft light of soft showers, and I see fire atop the hard-lined structure. A sound wrenches me from sleep. Untangling myself from Sar's warmth, I fasten a blanket about me and climb to the deck. All around is muffling blackness, the water's calm, a few points of light between cloud. Then the sound again. I turn towards it and see a smudge of flickering amber on the iron sea. The paddle clops in flat water, the warm colour inchingly nearer with each stroke. Blue infuses the sky as I cease to dip and push. Sparks and soot ride a soft breeze, and I see fire atop a hard-lined structure. As the sky lightens, its colour is reflected in many squares of glass, blue, green, pearl. "Beetham Port?" questions Sar's voice. She is standing next to me, wrapped in a goatskin cape, eyes fearful. Laying the paddle down, I embrace her, my own fear loud in booming heartbeat. There is movement now on the dark shape. 4 figures stand, one gesticulating wildly. He shouts unfamiliar words, broken on a wind that streaks suddenly. Waves from nowhere rock our vessel, and he cups his hands, repeating the words. "Loch Ness! Creature!" We twist in the boat, eyes scanning the sea, clutching at each other as another voice calls. "Rope! Haul yourselves!" A twisting shape splashes, and Sar tumbles, half in, half out, legs sprawling over the wood, hands flustering in the water. "Sar!" I grab the goatskin, slippy with sea spray, and pull her back. The boat flips back and forth. Sickness rises as my eyes follow the stabbing fingers of the figures, now blurry with movement. Their cries fill the morning. "Loch Ness! Pray to your gods!" A looping blackness fills my senses. Sleek, slaty skin, movement of a snake. Muscular flexing. "Sar! Sar!" Her form wavers, hands are outstretched as I fall, pulled into the water by a slavering mouth, spittle and seawater, teeth brighter than moonshine. Plunging downwards, I lose my coat to the beast, delve further into waters dully illuminated by rays of smoke green. The rising sun far above strikes a blade of light to my present world. I see the glass squares disappearing to a point more distant than I can imagine. My last breath held, I regard with incomprehension the tops of many other structures below my paddling feet. Martin, Christ's sake, stop kicking me. What creature?" I start, sit up, feeling about for water. Cloth surrounds me. Cloth, bed, room, dim lighting, books, furniture. She leans over me, auburn hair tickling my face. She, my wife? "Are you all right, Mart? You look awfully pale." Twisting over, I retch. A small pile of yellow steams from the smooth laminate flooring as I hang there, stomach growling. Carol's gone, skittering to the kitchen. She returns with cloths and sprays. She mops and rubs while I drag myself to the bathroom and stand under a steaming spray of water for a long time. It's Friday. My diary informs me I have a day off. I feel an urge to walk over hills, certain hills, during these 3 spare days. Carol watches me cautiously over the rim of her coffee cup. "So what was it about, that dream?" Looking up from toast and marmalade, I try to remember the details, but they have become a hazy bunch of images, giant reptiles, boats and mossy hillsides. Mountains, endless seas, drowned buildings. Actually, the last bit seemed to involve the Loch Ness Monster. "Too much computer roaming before bed," she says archly. "Is there a mountain somewhere called Katbells or Katbell? Something like that," I say, recalling suddenly a peculiar name. She scratches a smear of low-fat spread upon her toast and pauses. "Katbells, yes, it's a mountain in the Lake District. I claimed it once with Dad." A silence falls as I look out from our kitchen window across the Manchester skyline. Any plans this weekend? Yeah, said I'd do a bit of shopping with Sandra and I might stay over. She's still a bit cut up after Pete left. So, me doing a spot of hill walking wouldn't interfere? No, not at all. Kinder Scout? Actually, not the peaks. I thought I might go and discover this Katbells place. She frowns. The lakes? What's wrong with our pissy little mountains here? I decide on action and start clearing the table. I just want to see it. Can I take the focus? She smiles. Sure, I'll use the Metrolink anyway. Standing up, she brings her plate over and slips an arm around my waist. Be careful, won't you? It can be changeable up there, even in late spring. I kiss her and pass a hand over her brow. Don't worry, gives you lines. She smiles. Get your boots and stuff sorted. I'll do you a packed lunch. By the way, I forgot to say, the Haynes manual came from the eBay seller. Hunger has caught up with me well before the Lake District. Turning into a lane, I drive up to a bluff and park, looking back into the sprawl of our city. Beetham Tower rises above all other buildings, the cold spring sunshine winking from its thousands of windows. Somewhere in there, on the 35th floor, my wife is hoovering, or washing her hair, or planning her shopping trip. I explore the lunch bag, sandwiches, fruit, and I'm relieved to find I remembered the fold-up raincoat. Lunch finished, I repack the bag, stow the car manual in the glove box, start the car, and head towards Katbells.